Leo Messi gave the Jamaicans what they paid for. We talk NWSL opening weekend with guest Claire Watkins. And thank goodness, Concacaf now has its own Marvel character. That and more here on Friday's Morning Kickaround. The call of David Beckham means just one thing. You've made it to the show. This is Morning Kickaround, where we cover the world's favorite game from the world's most favorite country, coming to you live every Monday, Wednesday, Friday. I'm Robert Kerr. He's Jason Davis. Thank you so much for tuning in with us live here on Friday, March 14th. How you doing, Mr. Davis?
Happy Pi Day to you, Robert. That's a thing that people talk about. It's Pi Day. I don't know anything past 3.14. I know no numbers after that. I am not a math person. Also, David Beckham, mean right foot, incredible free kick taker. I guess we're going with that. Happy Friday to everybody.
Maybe doesn't translate into the modern game, but really great for his era. Right?
Did Jenny just throw that up from memory? That would be ridiculous. That's our producer who just threw up the pie to I don't know how many places is that? 30?
Doesn't it go infinitesimally?
Yeah, it goes infinitesimally. That's the thing. People are like, I know pi to 100 places. I don't know why you would need to know that, but good for you. Good for you. It has to do with circles and stuff. That's all I know.
All right, pop quiz. Best pie for breakfast here in Morning Kickaround.
Best pie for breakfast? People eat pie for breakfast? Is that a Midwest thing? I don't know about pie for breakfast.
Maybe some hot apple pie after your sausage and eggs?
Does quiche count as pie? I don't know what we're doing. What are we talking about here? Pie for breakfast? I'm shocked and appalled right now.
I'm sure they do that at the Cracker Barrel, right? Get some hot apple pie.
I have not been to one of those in many a year, many a time. I do like myself some biscuits and gravy, but that's not pie. So let's move forward. Let's go.
Fair enough. We got great stuff coming on the show. We're going to talk about midweek Concacaf Champions Cup, look ahead at the MLS weekend number 4. We've got Claire Watkins. We're going to talk about opening weekend for the National Women's Soccer League, and we are going to talk about Valor. Or Valor?
Volar. We're going to work on this. Volar, Robert.
The Concacaf champion, Concacaf mascot.
We'll get into this more when we talk about Volar, but Volar means to fly in Spanish. So it's very on the nose. He's a bird and he flies, hence his name is Volar. Let's move on.
If you haven't already hit the subscribe button, be the next to do so. We are creeping up on 1,500 subscribers. Can you believe it, Jason? So why don't we try to hit that before the weekend here? It's Morning Kickaround on YouTube. Thank you for watching, and if you haven't clicked the button, be the next to do so. You can follow the show on social media at mkickaround on the platforms, including X, Instagram, and Blue Sky. You can write us an email. I've got some nice notes to return messages to, but if you want to write us something, morningkickaround@gmail.com is the way to do so. And if you have a couple extra bucks just floating around, send it our way. Help support the program. Ko-fi.com/morningkickaround. Thank you to anyone who has already donated, and thank you for anyone who's considering doing so moving forward. All right, let's get into Friday's long balls here on Morning Kickaround. Long balls. It is our headline segment here on Morning Kickaround. This is Friday, March 14th. I'm Robert. He's Jason. Last night, Leo Messi returned to action for Inter Miami. It was Concacaf Champions Cup. Messi has been absent the last 3 or so games, but returned to action as a second-half sub, scoring in the final moments to secure the victory against Jamaica's Cavalier SC, giving the people what they paid for, sending the fans home happy. Messi back in action, back on the field for Inter Miami.
Yeah, it doesn't mean a whole lot. I mean, they were supposed to be Cavalier. You know, Inter Miami blessed to have a Jamaican team in this round after beating Sporting Kansas City in the last round. These are not challenges. No offense to Cavalier. I know, Jamaica cares about football. But
Cavaliers on the map now. People took notice. They put up a good fight.
Yeah, obviously playing pretty well in Miami and losing 2-0 and set them up for this. Messi coming off the bench and scoring. Nice pass, as you mentioned before the show. Nice pass to set him up for that goal. Little through pass that Lionel Messi, and that's a classic Messi goal. Gets the ball off his foot so quickly. Goalkeeper can't respond. Just perfectly placed, far corner. Crowd goes wild. All the kids in the stands in Jamaica wearing Inter Miami Lionel Messi shirts. We're having a good time. Lots of this, lots of like, we're not worthy kind of stuff happening down there in Jamaica at the office. They played this game at the National Stadium, not where I believe Cavalier plays most of their games, because 30,000 people wanted to see Lionel Messi play. I know there's an article over at The Athletic from Paulo Maurer. He traveled to go see the response and the appreciation.
Salute
and
to the Athletic for sending him down there.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we should not take that stuff for granted, and Pablo's an excellent writer. So I'm looking forward to diving into that story a little bit later on today. In terms of sort of the absence of Lionel Messi, Javier Mascherano, he went to great lengths to explain this as, we don't want to risk him. We've been told by the doctors there's nothing wrong. He doesn't have any ouchies. He needs a little bit of rest. Look, and he is 37 at this point, Lionel Messi. Like, he's 30. I'm 45. I'm a little bit older. I wake up in the morning and everything hurts. I imagine after playing that many soccer games, Lionel Messi doesn't always feel good. And he is starting to project this old man image on the field. Even after the goal last night, he played what? He played half an hour, 45 minutes? Not even. He played 40 minutes in that game?
Something like that, yeah.
Afterwards, he was like, he's got ambling around midfield as players come up from Cavalier to take selfies with him, which is such a weird part of the Lionel Messi experience, all that stuff. And he just kind of looks like he's getting a little too old for this. And I'm not saying that he's not going to be good for the rest of the year or Miami's going to, not win things because Lionel Messi's broken. But this is definitely something to watch out for. And he's still playing for Argentina. And they got games coming up in the window, right? Argentina does that insane gauntlet of qualifying. And, he's still very proud to represent his country, defending World Cup champions. So I guess that's where we're at with Lionel Messi.
I think the words you're talking about for after the game for an old man, you're moving around gingerly, and you kind of wonder, how did I just run around at all? Now that I feel this way just walking around, I can understand that as someone above a certain age line. So set the scene for Messi in Argentina. He's creeping near 40. He has they're the reigning World Cup champions, Copa America champions, and they're leading World Cup qualification there in South America. But they are taking on two of the biggest tests. They are taking on Uruguay and Brazil in this window. So the two traditional competing powers in qualification down there. So do you think that Mascherano and Messi were kind of shaping his minutes to allow him to be available for these Argentina matches?
That's possible. That is possible. I wouldn't put it past them to have a plan. And look, I don't even know that I would be mad about it if I was an Inter Miami fan. I mean, this is a team that won a points title and set a points record last year, missing Messi for decent parts of the year. Right? When he was on the field, he was good, but a lot was made about how they were actually better when Lionel Messi wasn't on the field. So if you're an Inter Miami fan, yeah, you want Lionel Messi to play. This is more of a thing for everybody else. Right, you said that he gave the Cavalier fans what they paid for last night in Kingston. It's more about the traveling road show that is Lionel Messi. Let me get a glimpse of Lionel Messi. Oh, he's not going to Houston? Well, we better give you free tickets to a free match or free tickets to a match to make up for the fact that Lionel Messi didn't come, even though we have no control over it as the Houston Dynamo, because everybody's selling against Messi. Everybody is marketing Lionel Messi. I mean, that was one of the questions in the anonymous GM survey that we covered on Wednesday, that, how are you taking advantage of Messi? Is it too much Messi? Or are you being oversaturated with Messi? And again, I don't know if there's any other way for Major League Soccer. It would be silly to go, well, you know what? Let's not go full all out on Messi marketing. Let's kind of pull back, and we got to tell more stories. If you already care about the league, you may be frustrated by the Messi marketing. But lots of people don't know about the league or aren't interested or need to be pulled in. In fact, we've got comments on the YouTube channel right here on Morning Kickaround. People saying, I paid no attention to Major League Soccer until Lionel Messi arrived.
Yeah.
So that's why you do this. In terms of whether or not he can still do both, Inter Miami and Argentina, we're going to find out. I mean, I'm not wishing anything bad to Lionel Messi, but he wouldn't be the first over 35-year-old player to say that's enough international or have to shut it down or deal with fatigue or something else.
I'm sure Inter Miami fans would rather him miss a couple games now and have him available, August, September time. Down
when
the
it counts,
road.
crunch time.
Long ball number 2, Major League Soccer and the Concacaf Champions Cup just completed the round of 16 with that Miami game in the books. So outside of the Major League Soccer teams that are remaining in the competition, Inter Miami, LAFC, Vancouver, and the Galaxy, which one of these teams do you think that now that they've gotten through the round of 16, now we're moving into the quarterfinals, which Major League Soccer team has the best odds at, making a run to the final, maybe winning the whole shebang?
Yeah, this is a year where it looks very difficult to imagine an MLS team winning the competition based on what we've just seen with Cincinnati and Seattle being knocked out, Robert, and not doing enough in their home legs. And we talked about this already, right? It's the home legs that really killed those two teams. And now you've got a couple of decent sides. I'm sorry, Galaxy fans, but I'm gonna have to hate on you just a bit. Your Galaxy are probably not going to get past Tigres, so I'm kind of discounting the Galaxy, who did come back against Herediano and make it into the quarterfinal round with that victory. So that leaves us with LAFC, who gets Miami. So we're going to lose an MLS team in the next round. Only one MLS team will be going on to the semifinal from that side. But we're also guaranteed an MLS semifinalist. So that is something. Now, Vancouver shocked everybody by getting that draw in Monterrey and getting past the Rayados. So that is, can Vancouver keep it going? And they get Pumas in that next round. It says TBD, but we know who's moving on. So they get Pumas. That's going to be tough. They're going to have to do this back-to-back, beat Mexican sides back-to-back. Now, if they do get a semifinal, they'll get it against an MLS team, which would probably be an easier challenge. So I think that your best hope is either LAFC or Miami, and I'm kind of in a flip-a-coin situation with those two teams. But because of maybe the Messi factor and just some questions around Mascherano and Inter Miami, I think LAFC is your best bet to win this competition from MLS.
What do you think LAFC's position of strength is? I know when they were playing Seattle last week, the commentators were saying, "Oh, these are the two deepest teams in Major League Soccer," but there's also the question marks of Olivier Giroud. Is he going to be providing what they want? What is the other than just a blanket statement of saying, their depth is the best quality? Where is the engine? What is the dynamic position for LAFC?
Well, I mean, look, Giroud has not delivered yet, and there's some talk about whether or not he should be out of the lineup, and Steve Trundle needs to move on from him, and a decision needs to get made. Look, when you have Dini Bouanga still, right? When you still have talented players who can score goals in your lineup, I'm not sure it's like the end of the world. For example, I'm going to bring this to Manchester United. Manchester United got through in the Europa League. They got through on the back of Bruno Fernandes, right? Because their forwards, and Rasmus Højlund is the one we're talking about here, can't score goals. He just cannot score goals. But they still got through. And it'd be better for them if Rasmus Højlund was scoring goals. But if you have a Bruno Fernandes who can step up, and I know two of those were penalties, then it doesn't matter as much. And Giroud can do a lot of things sort of off the ball and back to goal and things like that can still help that team. The key player, though, for LAFC is the guy who helped the Galaxy win a championship last year, Mark Delgado. Mark Delgado has made that midfield better for the LAFC after switching sides of town. So he's the one I'd be keeping an eye on if I was watching this team go through the Concacaf Champions Cup. They could very well get past Miami. In fact, I would have them favorites to beat Miami. And then again, they're going to have to probably go up against Pumas unless Vancouver beats Pumas.
I was gonna say, let's give Vancouver some kudos here.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, they pulled off the upset. How many times have we said the sentence, Vancouver Whitecaps have beaten Monterrey?
Yeah, that's not a thing usually, right? And they did it on away goals. Again, they scored twice in Monterrey. That there's a lot of credit for that. Okay, that's not what MLS teams do, all right? We bemoan the fact that both Seattle and Cincinnati wasted their home legs because we knew how hard it was to win away, and both of them got rocked. Certainly Seattle did. That was not what happened to Vancouver. I don't know what, there are factors you can pull in, and why were they able to do what Cincinnati and Seattle could not do? I don't know. Maybe it's their new head coach. Maybe it's just a mentality. Maybe it's being Canadian right now because everybody Canadian feels very proud to be from Canada. And they're not all Canadian, obviously.
Inflated,
Maybe it's Brian White. Brian White scored in that game. Brian White just got called up to the U.S. men's national team. A 29-year-old forward finally getting some shine. Like, that is great.
Yeah, I was going to say the legendary Sergio Ramos couldn't undo the resplendent work of Brian White. I mean, you can't beat back Brian White at this point. And then in the other quarterfinal, Cruz Azul America, who's the best team from the Mexican Mexican competitors at the moment. I'm not haven't been tapped in there.
Cruz Azul is atop the table right now in the Clausura. They're 2 points up on Club America. So you're talking about the two top teams in Mexico at the moment going up against one another. By the way, Tigres also still alive in this tournament, playing against the Galaxy in this next round. They're in third place. So I'm sorry, did I say Cruz Azul? Leon's atop the table. Cruz Azul's in fifth. I'm going to get this right. Club America's in second. So you would shade it Club America's way just based on their form in the league, but I don't know that you should be too wrapped up in that. These teams will absolutely throw haymakers at one another. It's going to be an incredibly entertaining matchup. I would shade it to Club America, but yeah.
All right. So we shall see what happens in the round of 16. That's going to be in a few weeks' time after the international break. Here in a little bit, later in April or so. Moving on to long ball number 3 here on Friday. Major League Soccer heading into week 4 of matches. There's some teams undefeated still. There's some ones who have yet to get their first win. We shall see. We'll come to this later. I'm curious which team is going to be the last to get their first win. But fabulous 4 of Major League Soccer, week 4. We're going to go back and forth and pick 2 games each. I'll go with number 1 of Morning Kickaround's Fab 4. I'll start off at the beginning of our calendar of games here. I'm going to go with Toronto welcoming in Chicago Fire. Toronto FC, one of the teams not yet to secure a win through 3 games, and in Chicago Fire getting their first win under Greg Berhalter next week. Does Triple G get back-to-back wins, or does Toronto get things moving in the right direction?
I don't know, but I did see that Greg Berhalter was asked about getting booed in Canada when he takes his team up there. He said the right thing, which is that doesn't have anything to do with soccer, and we're going to be prepared to play. I mean, it's not a test because I don't think Toronto's good yet. I mean, they could improve, but it is an opportunity for the Fire to show that there's a project that has some momentum going forward. I mean, you look at the first couple of weeks of the year, and really Chicago was marked by just making dumb mistakes, right? Just gifting goals to their opponents.
So many.
And you can't do that. And I think that's the kind of thing that should get evened out, right? Those bumps should be smoothed out as the season progresses. I mean, certainly that's what you hope. If it doesn't, well then, ouch, maybe Greg's not the right guy. And they've lost to the Crew, and they drew with DC, who maybe isn't terrible, and they beat Dallas. Obviously Dallas gifted them something as well. So, this is just the messy beginning of the MLS season. It's really hard to know how good the Fire are. But that's an interesting one. For my first game, for our Fab 4, I will go a couple hours later and pick Charlotte versus Cincinnati. Charlotte got a little bit of heat coming out of week 2 as maybe the best team in the Eastern Conference. It was incredibly early to be making statements like that. People were jumping the gun wildly after they beat Atlanta United 2-0 in Charlotte. Wilfred Zaha, though, did something, right? And everybody was kind of like, okay, when Wilfred Zaha does something, watch out for Charlotte because we're going to see them really make a move. And then in week 3, what did they do? They lose to Inter Miami 1-0 in a game that they just did not look engaged. They did not look ready for it. I don't know. So I want to see if they can bounce back at home. They get a big crowd. Home field advantage is real. Now, Cincinnati is who we thought they were. Now, they haven't. They're 0-1 goal difference. They've given up 4. They've scored 4. I think they probably need a few more goals, but they're also a team that can win 1-0, and we know they can do that. Their one loss is to Philly, who's hammering everybody with Ty Baribo doing things we didn't expect Ty Baribo to do. So maybe you toss that out. I don't know. But Cincinnati, that's a good team. They need to back up a win last week over Toronto with a win on the road or something. Get something out of this game against Charlotte to prove that they are elite, right? Because I think we are not sure yet who is elite. We know Miami's going to be good. We know Columbus is going to be well coached, and they're undefeated. We know that perhaps Atlanta's ready to make a move, although it's been a mixed bag for them so far. So who else is going to be part of that elite? Is Philadelphia really elite? Is Cincinnati really elite?
My second pick to make the third of our Fab Four here on Morning Kickaround's Fab Four for week 4 of Major League Soccer. I'm going to go to the night game on Saturday. A few reasons for intrigue here. San Diego FC hosting Columbus for their second home game, and it unfortunately made the news. San Diego FC battling the chant in their home opening game. You'll see it here on the screen. The San Diego FC is taking lots of proactive steps to try to prevent this from becoming a regular thing and part of their club culture. And you can see on the screen, they have a not here, our club is for everyone, bring your energy, but not the goal kick chant. Unfortunately, they have to do this, but definitely taking proactive steps are San Diego FC. San Diego on the field have had a hot start taking on Columbus, but you go ahead.
Well, I just want to address this part before you talk about the game itself and sort of what's happening on the field. So obviously they're taking these steps. They've put out this is just a graphic that says, not here as you described, and in Spanish too, obviously, nuestro club es para todos y todas, it's for everybody. They just kind of fill this in. They have some key actions that they're going to be taking. They're going to be communicating to fans and ticket buyers from the club that you can't do this. Match information, don't do this. They're going to have signage in the stadium that follows this, the not here. Excuse me. Not here situation. Yeah, that one. Well, that came from. I'm allergic to that chant is probably what's going on there. They're going to have a pre-match message. They're going to have a supporters banner. I guess they're going to ask their supporters to hold a banner up that says don't do this. They're going to have security measures. If you do this, they will kick you out, or they're going to try to anyway. And they're doing the FIFA 3-step protocol, which we have not seen used to great effect.
Have we ever gone full step 3 and just walked off the field? Has that happened yet?
I don't think so. And that's why people don't really think that protocol works well, because the referees are loath to kill a game. They really don't want to do that. The first referee to do that, is going to be famous for not great reasons. So on the field, Rob, with San Diego and Columbus.
So San Diego has had a great start to their Major League Soccer existence. 2 wins and a draw through first 3 games. When you think about the history of expansion sides, not everyone begins life in a positive light. They have a +4 goal difference. Exciting the fans already, scoring 5 in 3 games and just conceding 1 time. Columbus, they're still figuring things out. They lost a big piece in Cucho Hernandez, of course, but they themselves have 2 wins and a draw. So we'll see who kind of breaks that with the matching records coming into this. One of Columbus's wins came against a shambolic, I don't use that term lightly, shambolic Chicago Fire side. So it's hard to tell truly where they're at. Where were they going to find consistent goal scoring is yet to be, discovered. But that's my second pick of the weekend. Late Saturday night, 10:30, San Diego FC. Can they combat the chant versus Columbus? Just because you kind of had that sneezing moment talking about the chant, what would have to happen for the chant that builds and crescendos at the goal kick? You could go, achoo, and it would be the same thing, right?
Why not? It's an idea. Francisco is saying, create a kickoff chant that can compete with it and drown it out if it comes up again.
That's what I'm talking about. Achoo.
Yeah, I think that not achoo. I'm gonna veto achoo, Rob. But I take your point. And obviously, what Francisco is saying is that, here's the problem with telling people don't do a thing. There is a certain subset of Americans who don't want to be told what to do, who will do exactly what you tell them not to do.
Yeah.
And it's like telling your kid don't do that, and then they do it anyway because they're pushing back against the authorities. That's what's going to happen here. You're going to have some people who are like, you can't tell me not to do this. You're going to have some people who weren't doing it before go, you're telling me I can't do this? Well, I'm going to do it now. So, that stinks.
That's like, don't touch your brother in the back seat of the car, and then you look in the mirror and he's like got the slow finger, about to go and touch him again. So we shall see. I'm glad that they are. It looks like it's more than just ticking the box saying they tried, but at least San Diego's trying.
I want to get to what Mike Thomas is saying in the chat. You suck, asshole saves the day. There was a whole thing, if you're old enough to remember, there was a whole thing when Philly entered the league, and Mike knows this, where MLS had to work very hard to get rid of that chant as well, the YSA chant. That was the American, the English version of the chant we're talking about in San Diego, and it was a huge controversy that Philly in particular seemed to be in love with the YSA chant. So I don't know.
So you're saying Philadelphia fans were getting into blue territory? They work blue in the stands in Philadelphia?
Oh, yeah, shockingly, they did. All right, we got one game left in the Fab Four before we move on, so I want to make sure we have time for it. Atlanta United and Inter Miami.
Yeah.
Do I really need to sell that one? It's going to be a massive crowd in Atlanta. I'm imagining they're open up the whole building, 70,000 plus, at Mercedes-Benz Stadium. Of course, you have a team with a lot of hype around them, with Atlanta having spent all that money in the offseason. Miguel Almiron's going to get a chance to play against Messi and Suarez and Busquets and Alba and the crew. Will Messi play in this game? Will he start this game?
This is the last game before the international break. So if the point of like trying to save him up for international duty, we'll see if that's true this weekend on turf.
Yeah. If there is a plan, if there is some reason that they're holding him back because they think it will benefit Argentina in the Concacaf CONMEBOL rather qualifying. Yeah. But they need to win games. They still have a season to compete, and I don't know. We'll find out. There's lots of talent on that Miami side, and regardless of whether or not Messi starts, it will be a spectacle. It absolutely will.
I think it was Mike in the comments when we were talking about Miami in CONCACAF Champions Cup action that Suarez might be the real show in Miami. Whether Messi is in or out of the lineup, Suarez is scoring. Messi, between Copa America and injury, missed a lot of time last year, and Suarez powered them to that points record without him.
That man is held together with duct tape and injections, but he seems to still be able to get it done. It's shocking to me.
Have you seen kind of the cruel hyper edits of people, highlighting just how bad his running gait is now, and be like, I think it was the comment was football has left him, and he's barely trudging down the field, but he's still scoring. And if it wasn't for Messi being there as well, I think Suarez's name would be the one in lights over the last year and a half.
Well, absolutely, yeah, that is 100%. Yeah. But at the same time, he doesn't have the star power. I mean, he's obviously an incredibly accomplished player, and he scored a ton of goals, and he's been famous for a long time. But he's also famous for biting. That's the only thing my wife ever knows about Luis Suarez. That's the guy that bit people? Yeah, that's the guy that bit people. That's exactly who he is.
On more than one occasion. That people, is our
plural. People, Rob. People.
Peoples have been bitten. Thank you so much for tuning in. That was our headlines. That was Long Balls here for Friday. If you haven't hit subscribe already, please do so. We are, barreling towards 1,500 subscribers. Join the MK Ultras if you haven't already. Morning Kickaround on YouTube.com. Follow us along on social media at MKickaround on X, Instagram, and Blue Sky. Write us a note morningkickaround@gmail.com. And if you have some loose change rattling around, or maybe something more significant, head over to ko-fi.com/morningkickaround and donate what you can. All right, we're going to take a quick breath and come right back and talk NWSL opening weekend with a special guest here in just 1 second here on Morning Kickaround. Hot topic here on Friday's edition of Morning Kickaround. I'm Robert. Below me, Jason in the little box, but in the big screen in front of you, we are welcoming in our special guest to talk about NWSL's opening weekend. Claire Watkins comes over from JustWomenSports.com, writer of Daily Newsletter and host of Late Game Sub Podcast. Thank you so much for joining Morning Kickaround, Claire.
Morning, y'all. Thanks for having me.
So great to see you, Claire?
Yeah, opening weekend games starting this evening here on Friday. Where are you at coming into the 2025 NWSL season?
I mean, it's exciting. I think last year we saw some very high highs, right? You got Orlando doing the double. They had Shield winners, championship winners. We saw a very separated top four, right? There were four teams that really stood above the rest of the pack. So maybe it was kind of like a season. I know the NWSL is known for its parity, known for its competition, but that was a season of high highs and maybe some low lows, wider gap perhaps between the top of the table and the bottom. So this year, I think the hope is that we'll continue to see kind of that excellence at the top, but maybe hopefully a little bit more competition down the table in 2025.
Yeah, I mean, parity, one of the hallmarks of American sports and American soccer. Do you think, though, that that there is a clear elite group? Or, I mean, player movement is obviously part of the story here as well. And we'll maybe get into some of those names that have jumped and what they mean to their new teams. But do you think that there's a clear elite, or will we get, a big come up from a couple of teams?
I think there is no reason to think that last year's top four won't also be the top four this year in some order. We did see a lot of player movement. I think maybe, the question for the team with the most questions probably was Gotham. That was a team that finished third last year, but they also had some nice signings. And I think that they might actually be more coherent this year than they were last year with sort of a packed locker room. So I think the biggest thing for me is less thinking that that top four might not be in that same order this year, but more that we might actually see teams like we saw Houston, who was last year, be very ambitious in the offseason. We've seen maybe actually some teams who are above the playoff line have tough off seasons. I think you have to look at Portland or Chicago. They've slipped a little bit this year. They're going to be missing some key players. So that gives an opportunity mid-table for some teams to jump above the playoff line, maybe for the first time.
Can I pause there on Chicago for just a second? Okay. But first
Claire,
of all,
coming to us from Chicago, by the way.
And I don't want to well, it's not the lead. I think the lead is the season and building up and Orlando's chance to repeat the double and everything. But there is other stuff happening here. First of all, nobody seems to be quite clear on whether the Red Stars are the Stars. That's still a work in progress. Even the league seems confused about the name of the team, Claire. But there's a high-profile absence from the start of the season for the Chicago Stars in Mallory Swanson. This seems like one of those things where it's really difficult to talk about because nobody knows what's going on, as far as I'm aware. And I'm we don't want to invade privacy here, right? This is one of those things like there's something going on, but nobody knows what it is. Is that a fair way to describe it?
Yeah, and I think, the tricky thing is you're right, which is that she's away from the team for personal reasons, which is very much protected in the CBA, very much her right. But we just haven't gotten a lot of clarity from Chicago. I think the biggest question is, without trying to pry into what's going on with Swanson, it's more just the timeline, right? Of just wondering how long she's going to be out. What does it mean for the team? And I would say that there was an availability. I think everybody kind of read the stories out of this with Chicago's head coach, Lauren Donaldson, this week. And it was still very muddy, right? Where it wasn't necessarily clear if they are expecting her back soon, if they're expecting her to be out for numerous weeks or months, and sort of what that means for Chicago themselves. And so I think the question is less about, wanting to figure out exactly what's going on with Swanson, because again, as we said, it's her right to her own privacy, but more that Chicago is being very vague about what they are expecting from their player this year, which I think is a tougher road to walk down from a sports perspective, because you would expect that information from the club at some point.
So Mal Swanson, huge star, I mean, her having a vague availability situation, obviously a big story. Are there any other preseason headlines coming into the season, or is that the big story right at the moment?
Well, I mean, I think I mentioned Portland, right? Which they also will be without their star forward. I mean, everyone remembers triple espresso from Paris last year. We're kind of down to single espresso this season because Sophia Wilson, this is lovely news. She's pregnant. It's not uncommon. I mean, people talk about this being the year, kind of this gap year for the U.S. in between major tournaments. They're going to be looking at the player pool. This is a lovely year, actually, for players to spend a little bit of time with their personal lives. We're seeing some players go to Europe. So that's wonderful, wonderful news for Sophia Wilson. But I do think that greatly limits Portland, not similar to Chicago. They've been dealing with some injuries in addition to some absences, and they haven't really had the offseason that they've needed to be able to compete without a player like that. So if you're looking for people who might slide down the table, I think Portland and Chicago are those teams to watch. I think San Diego had a lot of players move out. They've got a brand new coach. They've got Jonas Eideval running the team for the first time this year. We saw Naomi Girma move to Chelsea for a record fee. So some of that, I mean, I'm leaning into some of the bigger storylines that are maybe a little bit, question marks for the NWSL. What does that mean going season? But I do think the way these teams react is actually always one of the hallmarks of an NWSL season, because the depth of talent in the United States is a facet of the league. And so I think there are going to be new names that pop up and new stars that are born this year.
Well, so in the spirit of that, a couple of players making impacts last year, the first season in the league or in their rookie season. I think a lot of people obviously caught some looks at Ali Sentnor after her term with the U.S. Women's National Team. So who's maybe ready for that big step? I mean, you could certainly talk about Ali if you want, but are there anybody else? Maybe there's a rookie coming in or somebody that a new addition to the league that people really need to be paying attention to.
Yeah, I think Sentner is a good shout. I do think that the rookie class last year was very strong, and we're going to be seeing continued development, not only just because these players are ready for that next step forward, but also just greater stability at the club level. I think Utah simply is going to be better this year than they were last year. I think Emma Sears in Louisville is another young player that people have maybe seen play for the U.S. a couple times. I think Louisville, we talk about sliding teams. I think Louisville is maybe poised to get above the playoff line for the first time this year. And then you mentioned like new players, rookies. This is also a very interesting year because fans didn't get a chance to be introduced to these players at the draft because there wasn't one, right? So this was the first year without an NWSL draft. So you can look at a wide swath of rookies that I think I'm excited about. Trinity Armstrong, who signed with San Diego, Lily Reel, who signed with Gotham. I think you talk about Hannah Baybar, who signed with Bay FC. But that introduction to those players is going to be a little bit more gradual through actual play because they didn't quite get that introductory moment in January this year.
The concept of a gap year of sorts is kind of an interesting concept to play with. And you said without the major tournament, it gives the players maybe a little bit more opportunity to be kind of personal pursuits or try something abroad. There is rumor about Trinity Rodman perhaps not being long for the NWSL. Is there fire to that smoke?
I think there's as much fire that smoke in that she's in a contract year, and certainly we'll hear what anybody has to say at the end of this year, just because when we talk about sort of money moves, money players, as we know, Europe are the big buyers right now, especially with the NWSL continuing to kind of gradually grow its salary cap. I don't know. I think the statement from Trinity Rodman this week that she said at NWSL Media Day of seeing herself in her career at some point playing in Europe does not necessarily mean next year. But I do think that it's a good kind of shout to the NWSL, to the Washington Spirit, to Michelle Kang, who's the owner of the Washington Spirit, who also has clubs in Europe, that Trinity Rodman is, in my opinion, the face of the league. She's the face of the U.S. Women's National Team. She is by far, at this moment, one of the most famous women's soccer players in the United States, and she's very, very good. And the end of a contract year is a real one. And I think for the first time, we might see a player kind of tackle this year, play as best as they possibly can, play the game a little bit in the media, and see what offers they see at the end of the year. And I think saying that you're open to Europe is a good way to start that.
Trinity likes to push. Am I wrong in remembering that Trinity got the first $1 million contract in the NWSL or something like that?
Yes,
It was,
I believe so. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, she was. She was the first player to get $1 million contract. I think this time she would want it over fewer years is perhaps the next final
Right.
frontier for the NWSL.
Right. Well, that's the thing, pushing the envelope, pushing beyond. I mean, look, we wanted to talk NWSL 2025, and there are lots of things there. Obviously, people think about big picture stuff, and we've got here Zach in the comments. I'm curious now that we're entering year 2 with 2 Division One, I think he means leagues. Has NWSL hinted towards changing their strategy in order to separate themselves, especially internationally? Obviously, this is a reference to the Super League, which is operating on a fall to spring schedule and doing its own thing and building. And I don't think, more of a grassroots kind of vibe to that league, as far as I can tell. But if you can give us a sense of what you make of the landscape in that regard, I would love to hear it.
Yeah, I mean, I think the NWSL's party line with USL Super League has always just been that more is better. I mean, I think there's a lot of room for infrastructure in the United States for women's soccer. I think you're seeing a push for the pro game kind of to take over more from, if there's going to be a sector that's pushed into more, I'm anticipating it being college as opposed to maybe what's happening at the top line in the pro leagues, where maybe Super League becomes a place where players who want to go pro, that's where they decide to go play soccer, as opposed to maybe taking a scholarship at a college as a college program. The NWSL, I think we have seen some loans to USL sides. I think the largest prospect so far for a USL team was Lexi Massimo, who did sign with Dallas in the offseason. That's a player who's been in the camp for the United States. That's someone who is a standout at Texas. You can maybe look at that as a particular situation because that was her staying at home. She's a Dallas kid, but as of right now, I think the NWSL is keeping an eye on what the Super League is up to, and certainly clubs are very willing to send players down to Super League across to Super League to develop. But as of right now, I think from a business standpoint, I think we need to see USL continue to make strides in attendance and ownership in sort of that kind of behind the scenes stability before we're talking about 2 truly competing Division I teams or leagues.
Looking at the opening weekend for NWSL 2025, what games should folks be kind of like zeroing in on? Is there some that kind of 2 or 3 that you've got highlighted on your schedule for week 1 here?
Yeah, I think Washington versus Houston is an interesting one. I mentioned Houston had a very aggressive offseason, but they also have a first-year coach. This is the first time as a head coach in the NWSL or in women's soccer. That was a team. Houston picked up a number of really interesting midfielders out of, they had 2 players from Gotham come out. Yasmin Ryan, who is a forward, and Delaney Sheehan came to Houston from Gotham. Danny Colaprico signed with Gotham out of San Diego. They are a team that I think was pretty aggressive in trying to, just in terms of depth, in terms of style of play, be able to compete a little bit more this year. So I'm really interested to see what that new look looks like on day 1. And obviously Washington looked fabulous in the Challenge Cup last week, though they're dealing with injuries and stuff like that. But I'm very high on Washington. I think that they've put together a fantastic roster, and if they can stay healthy, they could be a real challenger for Shield and Championship. I think actually Angel City, San Diego is an interesting one, not necessarily because these are 2 teams that I think are competing for the top of the table, but that's interesting to me. These are 2 teams with a lot of backing. They were the 2022 expansion teams. They're regionally kind of trying to build that rivalry. But there's a lot of question marks about both of those teams and what they're going to look like. Angel City has an interim manager right now. San Diego has like a brand new roster. It's much, much younger, much less established than it was last year. So that's another one. And then Gotham Seattle is also interesting to me because those 2 teams were part of a big trade in the offseason where Gotham sent Lynn Biondolo, who people might know as Lynn Williams, to Seattle. This was a requested trade. They sent goalkeeper Cassie Miller with Biondolo, and then they sent Jalen Howell, who is kind of this rising young midfielder, to Gotham. That was a big one because that was kind of the first time we heard a player say, yeah, maybe this Gotham locker room isn't completely working. So I think there's a little bit of intrigue there to see how those 2 teams stack up as well.
All right. Now I gotta, those are great games. And I gotta get your thoughts on predictions here, Claire. I don't know if you have chronicled these anywhere else, but give me your points winner, give me your champion, maybe give me an MVP in 2025.
Yeah, I think I'm going to split it this year. I think Orlando could do the Shield double. I think they're set up for a real nice consistency this year. And I am very much when I'm going into a new year, unless a team has a disastrous offseason, I say there's no reason why they can't do it again. Championship, I like the Washington Spirit or the Kansas City Current. That's maybe my final is like the Current and the Spirit. I think those two teams are set up for knockout soccer really well. For MVP, oh, that's tough. I still think the Current are set up to score 10 with Chawinga, a lot of goals. They have not changed their strategy at all, and they have a high octane offense. Like I said, Trinity Rodman, if she can stay on the pitch, she's had some lingering back issues. I think if she can stay on the pitch, she's a front runner for MVP. And then Barbara Banda. I mean, I'm going to be boring and just say that like there is no reason to think that these major players from last year will not be in the front running this year.
Yeah, I think those are great picks. I'm going to write all those down and tell people they're mine too, because I know Claire knows what she's talking about.
Yeah, Claire, thank you for spending the time with us to preview the first weekend of NWSL season. Tell our viewers where they can find your work.
Yes. So I write for Just Women's Sports. You can find us at justwomensports.com. We also have a 5 days a week daily women's sports newsletter, which is basically just breaking down all of the biggest headlines in women's sports in your inbox 5 days a week. If you're interested in keeping up with all the stuff that's kind of hard to keep up on every single day. And then, I am the host of the Late Sub podcast, currently on hiatus, but I'll be coming back in the second quarter of this year. So you can follow me on all sorts of different platforms, Twitter, Blue Sky, Instagram, whatever, at Scout Ripley.
All right. Thank you so much for shedding light on the first weekend of NWSL, giving us some predictions, and we'll hold those, hold you to those at the end of the season. So, Claire, thank you so much. Check out our stuff at justwomensports.com. Thank you so much for joining us here on Morning Kickaround. And if you have not already hit the subscribe button, be the next to do so. Morning Kickaround on youtube.com. We are barreling towards the 1,500 subscriber mark, so be the next to do so. Follow along on social media at Kickaround on X, Instagram, and Blue Sky. Write us a note, morningkickaround@gmail.com, or send us a donation, something small one time or something big and regularly occurring. Ko-fi.com/Morning Kickaround. We're going to catch our breath and come right back in just a few seconds with Friday's Big Question here on Morning Kickaround. Big question here on Friday, March 15th, Morning Kickaround. A big question of the day, will Valor, the Concacaf mascot, be a game changer for the sport of soccer in the region?
Did you say velour?
I did, so I'll start over. All right, Friday, here on Morning Kickaround, big question of the day, will Valor, the Concacaf mascot, be a game changer for the sport in the region?
That's the second time. It's Volar. It's Volar, not Valor, Volar. All right.
Should I try it a third time?
This might be the segment. You just mispronouncing the name of this incredibly weird comic book character that Concacaf has created. You want to try one more time? You want to try one more time?
All right. The big question here on Friday, Morning Kickaround, will All right. Morning Kickaround, big question. Will I don't even know. Will the mascot for Concacaf change the game here in the region?
I want to believe you were doing a bit there, but I don't think that was a bit. I think you're trying to figure out the vowel construction of this name.
The hardest 5-letter word I think I've come across.
It's volar. It means to fly in Spanish, so it is very on the nose as a name for a bird, man, creature. Now, some people have already seen this, right? They've already seen volar. It's been out there. People have been talking about it. Concacaf announced it this week. I even talked about it on the Best Soccer Show last night. Go look for that wherever you get your podcast. Go to the YouTube channel and you can see it. But I found somebody sent me the actual comic book, because this is not just we have a mascot.
Yeah,
this is
give more context.
A comic book. They've created an entire backstory. This is page 1. This is the cover rather. Volar, there you can see him in all his glory. He is half man, half seabird apparently, because he's got hands and feet, and his Wings are made up of the flags of the nations of Concacaf. Robert, I see Panama. I see the United States of America there. I think that's Puerto Rico kind of in the armpit area, which really makes me kind of mad, having as many ties to Puerto Rico as I have. I prefer not to be in the armpit if possible. So there's that. First of all, your impressions. Impressions of Volar.
Well, I think my impressions are definitely shaped by the kind of the corporate talk in the release. Volar is described as a seabird guided by the spirit of the ocean on a mystic mission.
Yes.
Volar represents strength, freedom, and endurance.
Yes.
So, and then CONCACAF also says that they're going to Volar is going to have a story, and you can follow his adventures across CONCACAF's website and social media channels. We're going to get into this comic book. Then they're going to peddle it to influencers. And apparently there's going to be in-person activations using this guy and immersive gaming experiences using
Can
Volar.
you imagine a person in a Volar suit showing up to CONCACAF event? Maybe Volar's on stage with Will Smith at this Nations League final because Will Smith's doing halftime at the Nations League final at SoFi Stadium. I don't know if you knew that. That's new information.
I can just imagine him high-fiving Will Smith to get jiggy with it.
Now, yeah, he could be getting jiggy. I guess that sounded terrible. All right, this is the credits page for the. Look, he's just a bird. He's just with his flock. You probably can't read it; it's very small. But
it's the beginning of his mystic mission.
Yeah, he lived a simple life with his flock, magnificent and free, never straying too far from the ocean. And then one day, he was out. This is the origin story, because every hero, and Volar is absolutely a hero, needs an origin story. He was out searching for food in the Caribbean Sea and saw a fish unlike any he had seen before. He was curious. He wanted to know more. The fish swam deep down into the ocean, and Volar dove after. Is it too much to have a bird who's representing a football confederation diving? Is that bad? Should we not do that, maybe?
That's funny.
All right.
It's the origin of the game.
He was built for speed and endurance, for deep diving, for exploration. And then he's diving, and his life changed forever. There's a vortex, a whirlpool. He is sucked into it. He's following it. Now he appears. He's at the bottom there. Apparently he's through this vortex and appearing in a soccer stadium somewhere.
A very squiggly soccer stadium.
Yeah. He comes out of the water ripped. Now he's got hands and webbed. I'm confused about the feet because he jams those feet into what look like sambas or something later on in the story. So now he's
you skimmed past the fact that he chased after a fish that was decorated like a soccer ball.
Oh, did I miss that part? Yeah. Okay. Let me go back. Where is that fish?
There,
oh, yeah, you're right.
Middle.
Look at that. That's why this fish is mystical with us. Because it's a soccer ball? I don't understand exactly what's going on here. Okay, so now he's flying out of the water. He finds a beach. They're playing soccer on this beach. He saw humans and their world, and it intrigued him. And then he was determined to make it back to his flock, but he's got to get involved in soccer. I don't know. Look at this. These kids are playing soccer, and they're watching a man bird fly past them, and they're smiling and laughing. They wouldn't be terrified. They wouldn't be like, get me away from here. What is this thing? Anyway, it goes on.
So CONCACAF describes this in the press release. This comic is an exclusive limited edition Marvel comic book of Volar's origin story, riddled with regional football history, along with his mission that'll allow fans to immerse themselves along his journey.
Yeah, you can see the little football fact in the yellow box. So it's giving you little information about various CONCACAF-related things. Anyway, apparently he gets involved in playing with these kids. Again, there's a giant man bird with abs and hands, and you're just like, yeah, come play soccer with us. He's flying through the jungles of Central America. He's flying with the parrots. He's learning how to surf. The bottom there, he's doing all these things.
I know we were daydreaming of Volar high-fiving Will Smith at the halftime show. I just pictured Trump with his arm around this guy at some sort of a ribbon cutting sort of event.
Yeah. Hey, look, it looks like he made it to America. He's oh gosh. First of all, Volar has an accent, I guess, or some sort of speech impediment because it says this tastes amazing.
It's his beak. It's getting in the way of his taste buds.
It says he's
The
eating
coney dog.
the coney dog. The bird is eating the coney dog. Get a picture. We can go viral. What is a coney dog again? I need to know. I can't remember.
A coney dog's a hot dog with like chili and cheese on top of it.
Okay. Oh, it's tasty. It's great for digestion. Bird flying through the air after eating a coney dog. Get out of the way.
Don't be under him.
Yeah, heads up. Oh, there's some mystical creature. Now he's meeting somebody under the water. The spirit of the ocean, who says he is ready for his destiny. And I guess this involves the football pattern again, the pattern on the fish. And the fish was my emissary, says the spirit of the ocean. One of many I sent to search for the right candidate, one bold and daring enough to follow it down to the whirlpool. One tenacious enough to keep going back. So I guess he's then selected.
I was going to say, on that previous page, those with more adult-framed minds don't look too hard. On the picture on the previous slide, the top left corner has a suspect sort of an image.
Oh. Yeah, we don't need to talk about that. Yeah, we don't need to talk about that. Why did it make it awkward? Robert. Anyway, the spirit of the ocean has chosen Volar, and then after he has already become a man bird, he is given the wings of Concacaf and all the flags of Concacaf. And it says to be continued, so we're looking forward to the future adventures of Volar. And there's going to be a video game. You can see there's going to be a game. I heard it's actually on Roblox. You can play the Volar game through Roblox, which I've never interacted with myself, but my older kid was a Roblox kid for a while. So maybe you can help me get online so I can play the Volar game. And then we're just pushing the Gold Cup. So,
oh man, Gold Cup. Oh man, so I had full screen, so I wasn't looking at the comments here. I think Zach, how do you feel here, fellow kids? This was totally written. This is totally written by someone that is not a child.
Yeah, there's a lot of awkwardness here. Generally speaking, I try not to be too judgy about efforts to market things, but so as Zach said, how much did this cost to produce? So are you shifting money that could go to programs or coaching education or building fields or supplying balls to communities that don't have equipment? Are you shifting money? And this is not 6 figures. This has got to be 7 figures.
To produce
right?
this?
To produce this, to print it, to activate it, to put it in a video game, to design, all that stuff. It's got to be, right?
The mascot costumes themselves cost like 5 figures.
I don't know if we're actually going to see that. I am now kind of scared about seeing that. Do you know how sometimes little kids, they see the mascot and it's not like, oh, cool, Mickey Mouse. They like freak out. I feel like, yeah. And again, and it's a Marvel comic. We mentioned that. I pretty clearly, and I think I have seen this before, and I'm just not remembering specifically the application. I think Marvel has like this corporate partnership arm. Like they have Marvel that produces comics and obviously is involved in TV and movies these days. But they obviously also have a section of Marvel that's like, hey, you want us to create a superhero for your business and produce a comic and make it all cool? And it does feel like it's trying too hard, right? This feels like it's trying way too hard. And why a bird? Why a bird exactly?
A seabird. Like what kind of animal is indicative of an entire like hemisphere and continent? I mean,
yeah, especially one as varied and as diverse as our CONCACAF region, Rob. That's again, I don't know that I'm angry or upset or annoyed about the attempt as much as I am just like the execution is super weird. And I made this reference on the Best Soccer Show, and I will make it again because it is too on the nose. Robert, do you know Howard the Duck? Are you aware of Howard the Duck?
Howard the Duck, yes, one of the strangest films there is.
Yes, but Howard the Duck was a comic. Howard the Duck came from the comic world as well, and I feel like somehow Volar is related to Howard the Duck. Like they're cousins or something. Like Howard the Duck was weird. This is weird. As long as we don't get a movie version of Volar that's like as uncomfortable as Howard the Duck, I think.
Yeah, interesting to see. But I mean, I guess I'm glad that Concacaf is trying to get the kids on board.
The kids on board. Yeah, you know what
yeah.
kids need to play soccer? They need a comic book. If you give them a comic book, they'll be really interested in soccer.
Kids are
what are you
impressionable.
selling?
Kids are
What are you
impressionable.
selling with Volar?
You're learning,
what are you selling?
There were soccer facts in there, Jason. The informational boxes on like every other page. They're becoming educated fans.
Yeah, I mean, a soccer fact. Jamaica was the first Caribbean team to qualify through Concacaf qualifiers for a FIFA World Cup in 1998. I wouldn't have known that if I didn't read the Volar comic, I guess. I think I did know that, but, football facts mixed in with him flying over Mayan pyramids and talking to the spirit of the ocean and apparently not scaring kids, which is great. I'm glad they're not scared of him.
Maybe kids will learn the timeless lesson of don't dive. Don't dive. That's
don't
not
dive.
part of.
Don't be like Volar. The opposite of Volar.
You'll get sucked into a soccer vortex and you'll never be the same again, kids.
I mean, if you do want to be as ripped as Volar, maybe you should be following soccer ball fish into the ocean and go through a vortex that looks like something else. Oh, maybe you should, because I mean, it takes a lot, workout and diet to get as ripped as Volar. All he had to do was chase a fish, and he became that.
That's all he had to do. And I think that about does it for Friday's edition of Morning Kick Around. Thank you so much for tuning in today, guys. Much appreciated. If you haven't hit the subscribe button yet, do it now. Morning Kick Around at youtube.com. We are, making our way towards 1,500 subscribers and beyond. So be the very best and very next to join the MK Ultras and subscribing to Morning Kick Around. You can follow along on social media at MKickaround on X, Instagram, Blue Sky. Write us a note on email, morningkickaround@gmail.com, and ko-fi.com/morningkickaround if you would like to donate some funds, help this show go from, just up and running to a sustainable and a growing program. Your point?
Yeah, in the spirit of that, we've had a couple of people ask us if we're going to podcast Morning Kick Around. And yes, indeed, we will be podcasting Morning Kick Around. I would look for that next week. Early next week, a podcast version should be wherever you get your podcast. And obviously, Robert is telling you about all the ways to get involved in the show. I will just again ask, please subscribe, but also please share the show. Maybe it's the Volar segment. Maybe it's Claire Watkins today. Something you liked from Morning Kick Around, tell somebody about it. Post it on whatever message board people still do message boards, is that a thing? Whatever social media you're on, if you're over there on Facebook, if you're on Threads, I don't know what's out there. There's a lot of things. Post the show, share the show, let people know we're here.
All right, guys. We will be back on Monday morning, and until then, everybody, please enjoy your soccer.